What is up, YouTube? It's your boy Joe here with day 9 of JavaScript with Joe. Every Wednesday at 4 p.m. we're going to be doing one of the live challenges from Advent of Code. I'm going to be using this website called REPL.it. I'll just send the link for today's in the chat. This is a great site if you've never coded before and you don't want to try and install a programming language. You can just jump right in and start coding. You get this area on the left where you can write your code, you can move through different files if you need them, and over here you have a REPL so you can run your code directly in there as well if you just want to do things line by line. And the other thing we're looking at is this. It's called Advent of Code. It is a daily code challenge that comes out in December, so every day there's sort of 2 small puzzles to do. I try and always do them in an hour, so you can see here I've successfully done 4 out of the 9, so it's not going too great, but that's still pretty good. So let's jump right in, but I'll send this in the chat as well. Okay, so these caves seem to be lava tubes, so that's caves left by lava. Parts are even still volcanically active. Small hydrothermal vents release smoke into the caves that slowly settles like rain. If you can model how the smoke flows through the caves, you might be able to avoid it and be that much safer. The submarine generates a height map of the floor of the nearby caves, which is my puzzle input. So all of these will have a puzzle input that's unique to my login or your login. So this is the input we're going to have to process at the end of this. It looks quite big, but let's see how complicated it actually is. So smoke flows to the lowest point of the area it's in. For example, consider the following height map. Each number corresponds to the height of a particular location, where 9 is the highest and 0 is the lowest a location can be. So that's important enough that I'm going to put it in my program so I don't forget it. Your first goal is to find the low points, the locations that are lower than any of its adjacent locations. Most locations have 4 adjacent locations, up, down, left, and right. Locations on the edge or corner of the map have 3 or 2 locations respectively, and diagonal do not count. In the above example, there are 4 low points. These are points where they're lower than everything around them. Cool. Yeah, looks good. All highlighted. 2 are in the first row, 1 in the third row. All other locations on the height map have some lower adjacent location and so are not low points. The risk level of a low point is 1 plus its height. In the above example, the risk level of the low points are 2, 1, 6, and 6. The sum of the risk levels of all low points in the height map is therefore 15. Find all of the low points in your height map. What is the sum of the risk levels of your height map? So let's not worry about risk levels at all for now. Let's just see if we can even identify these points. So let's put that in there. And to start with, my input's going to be, I'm going to store these in a, I think I'll store them in like a 2 by 2 array like this. And then just put each line in there one at a time. Now, you know what, let's just go straight from reading in from a file because that's just asking for trouble anyway. Okay, so I've left this little bit you can uncomment in the code anyway. So that should create a variable that reads things in line by line for us. So if I access input now, I have what I was basically about to type out anyway. That's normally, I feel like this is the only bit that you're just not going to be able to intuit to if you're good at a programming language but aren't good at Googling things. So I think it's worth keeping that in. Okay, now that's not really an object I could commute over. I'm looking for something where I could say, you know, for the first row, I don't know, second column, I want to be able to access that with input 0, 1. And at the moment that's not going to work. So input 0 will give me the first string. Oh, it does work. Okay. Maybe I don't need to do anything else then. I guess my concern is that I want to be able to iterate over every item and check its surrounding ones. And now I'm realizing that really we could start at high locations and sort of crawl down to the lowest point, which might be a bit easier to do. But for now, let's just try every single one and see what happens. So if I wanted to check the first cell, I would then have to check is lower than 0, 1 and 1, 0. But for now, let's just try every single one and see what happens. So maybe let's get. So if I wanted to check first cell, I think I'm just looking for like a way to iterate over this string, and I'm not going to be able to do that if I don't break it down a little bit further. So maybe I'll do that. So let's say input equals input dot. So maybe let's get map, and that will take out rows. I think I'm just looking for like a way to iterate over this string. And I want to return the row.map. So maybe I'll do that. Num2, I guess. Let's say input equals input. Do I just want to do row.split maybe? Like that. Row.split. So that should take each of these rows, declare them as this variable row, and then replace them with a row split, which should split them into numbers basically. There we go. So have I still got the same top row? Yeah. So now what I should be able to do is say things like input 0, 0 is less than input 1, 0, and that would be, what would that be? My number 0, 0 is less than 3, which is true. Okay. So now let's just see if we can iterate over to the array. Let's see if we can iterate over this and print out everything we need. So for let row equal 0, row is less than, I guess, input dot length. Now let's just see if we can iterate over row plus plus. Let's give ourselves a bit more space there as well. For let col equal 0, col is less than row dot length, col plus plus, and now I should just be able to log out everything. Console log input row col. So that should just print out everything line by line. Oh. For row is 0, col plus plus, and now I should just be able to log out everything. So my concern here is that this might not be running, perhaps because row.length isn't what I should be using. So that should just print out everything line. Let's see if it prints out anything there. Undefined, okay. So what is a row look like? A row is a array. Input equals input.map. I guess the other thing is input.length might not be what I think it is. No, 5. So for 5 rows, let row equals 0, go up to where row is less than 5, console.log row.length. So I do input 0.length, what do I get? 10. But why doesn't it do anything there? Because I've reassigned row to be 0. So it's not row.length, it's input row.length. 10, 10, 10. Okay, and then now why doesn't this one work? It's getting 10 every time there. log out the columns here. Nothing. Okay. So again, it shouldn't be row.length, it should be input row.length in here. Cool, there's all our numbers. So we can verify them by just checking with our file. Our last line should be 9899. 9899, cool. Okay, so now I need something that gets all the cells around this cell, which probably should be a function. So let's try doing const get around, and let's have that take a row and a col. Ooh, let's do like this, equals row col. Okay, so now I need something that gets all the cells around this cell. And then in here, let's just console.log and put row col to start with. But really what we're going to do is, well, we're going to want that plus 1, that minus 1, that plus 1, that minus 1. And what we're going to find is that this isn't going to work. So if we put 0, 0 in here, this one will go out of bounds, this one will go out of bounds. So this will work for like the central cells, but not the outer cells. So we could wrap all of these in an if to like check if they exist first. So let's try get around. So 1, 1 should work. And what we're going to find is that this isn't going to work. Still got all those logs in. Let's get those out. That one. This one will go out of bounds. So this will work for like the central cells, but not the outer cells. Yeah. Okay. So we should be. We're looking at 1, 1, which is this one here. This 9. So we should be seeing what to the right of it, to the left. No, sorry, above it, below it. So above it 1, below it 8, which we get kind of backwards. Row plus 1 will be lower down. That's why. Oh. It's kind of the opposite way around I want. That's worth noting. And then 8 and 3 on each side, which we do have as well. So then next we want to check if that's less than this number. So let's say something like const our num equals this one. And then that can just be our num. And then we want to say let's do, next we want to check if that's less than this number. So maybe let's deal with the edge cases first. So let's go to do make this not crash on the edges, and to do what was I just about to do? Yeah, check if low point, I guess. So to make it not crash on the edges, I wonder if there's a way we can. I know in like newer JavaScript there's stuff where you can check if something exists with a question mark, though I assume that's not going to work with array access. So I could test it with something like this, it's just not going to exist. Does it just not exist? If it just doesn't exist, I can kind of cheat it. Oh, there we go, type error. Let's have a full check if the index exists before accessing JavaScript. Very purple. Strange. So just check if it's undefined first, I guess. Is there not a better way than this? This is what I was looking for, this question mark thing. Basically just checks if it exists before accessing it. So can I do input question mark dot 12? Did I use it wrong? That's what they did. The optional chaining operator. This is what I was looking for, this question mark thing. Basically just checks if it exists before accessing. Not supported in some versions, I don't know. Let's just check if it's undefined, I guess. So we can say input, I don't know, 0 equals, well, is not equal to undefined. Okay, let's give it a try. If, I guess we could just check if it's in the first. We could just check if it's in the first column, right? We could just say if row equals 0, then we don't want to check. I guess we say if row is not equal. If row is equal to 0, then we can't do this one. So why don't we do that? Then we can do if row, well, let's do the other one. If col is not equal to 0, then we can't do this. So then we should only get 2 logs if we pick the first one. That hopefully. Cool, okay. Then the same, well, let's check if it still works for this. This should still give us 4 numbers and our original number, okay. So then let's go if row not equal to row dot, well, input dot length. Then that means we're not on the last one. That might be wrong, it might be that -1, but let's give it a try. And how big is that input? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So if I go get around, and I do 9, 0. Does it need -1 here? Because length will be 1 higher than that. Get around 9, 0. Oh. Let's just see if it, well, we know it can't be 9. So is my maths wrong or is my logic wrong? Get around 9, 0. Ooh, okay. If row is not equal to 9, that is the row, so it shouldn't be running. But row is equal to 9. Is it because it's a number? Shouldn't be. No, okay. So if row is not equal to 0, which it isn't, then access the row -1, so 8, 0. If column is not equal to 0, which it is, so that shouldn't be running either. Although it is erroring up here. Can't get our number because we're asking for a number that's out of bounds. No, we're not. Are we? Input. Oh, of course, there aren't 9 rows. How many rows are there? 5. Well, that'd be why. What was I doing? Asking for the columns when I should have been asking for the rows. Or was I doing that all along? Get around 5, 0. Get around 5, 0. But it's not 5, it should be 4 because it's 5 rows, but we start counting from 1, it's erroring on this. So that should be that. Okay, cool. So that's our corner because I only found 3. So that's this corner here. So we've got A8. And then the same on the bottom one. So if col is not equal to input row dot length minus 1, then we're accessing this one. And there we go, that should give us all our get arounds we need. So I should be able to get around 0, 0, and that's a corner. Get around 0, 4, 0 is a corner. 4, 9 is a corner, and 0, 9 is a corner. Cool, okay, so next we want to do, let's do let is lower equal, let's do an empty array, and let's say is lower dot push. Okay, cool. So that's our corner. Oh, should we start naming all these? So that's this corner here. So maybe not. Okay, so let's do, that should be greater than our num, and we're looking for when all of them are less, all of them are greater than. So that's to be here, 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 and let that go there, that go there, that go there. Now I'm just going to check what our is lower looks like. Oops. So for our example 1, 1, we know that's not a lowest point because it's 9. It should be lower than everything else. We should be able to force this one and see that they're all true. So if I do get around and do 0, 9, they're all true. Okay, so now I just need to reduce this is lower to check if they're all true. So I think there's an every, so we can either use the every function or a sum function. Maybe use sum because the first time we find a false, we know that's not true. So I can do, what is that? Console.log is lower dot sum should be greater than lower. We're looking for when equals. It's what we always want them to be. How does this work? Check whether any element is even. So we want to check whether anything is false. So if it is not lower, so we could say, so that this should be true, I think. Let's give it a try. Ooh. Oh, I need an arrow function. Oops. So for lower equals false. We know that's not a lowest point because it's 9. Okay, so true. I guess we could call this is not low. So let is not low equal that. So let's log that console.log is not low. Right, I've got that backwards then, because that is a low. Let's call it is low then. And let me just try that with something else. So let's do get around 0, 0, and that says true, it is low, which it isn't. So this, my logic there isn't right. I guess I can't just flip those around. I think it was correct for is not low, but maybe for is low, it needs to have no falses, right? It needs to be, this is the bit where it's wrong. It's saying it's true because there's one, but actually it needs like sum, if sum is lower, so if there is one that is higher, what have I done? So I've got this list of is lowers, but they're actually holding, so our number is lower than their number. So if our number must always be lower, or if it's higher once, then it's low. Get around 0, 0. No. Let's just do every, making my head rattle. So if they're all true, then it's a low point, right? Get around 0, 0. False, good, and for this one it should be true. And what else? If I can get that 5, what is that? Row 2, column 2. Cool. So I can stop all these console logs, hopefully. And that should just give me my right. So let's just return this. Return is low, and then I should be able to call get around here. So get around row col, and then I probably just want to log out. Oh, okay, that's just because it's below. It's below my for loop. It worked, but obviously I didn't do anything with it. So let's do if that, then let's log out the row numbers. So console.log row plus col. I should get the positions of the trues. So there's 4 of them. So 0, 1, yeah. 0, 9, yeah. 2, 2, and 4, 6. Cool. So what else did I need to do? I needed to get the risk level, which is 1 plus its height. No worries, Matt. Thank you for joining. The challenge is there if you want to read it. I think I've almost got the first part done, just about halfway through. So in the above example, the risk levels are 1 plus its height. So I should just be logging out, I guess its height is 2, 1, and 6, which is just these numbers plus 1. So let's just get the input row col plus 1, and that should be my risk levels. Oh. Ah, it's just because this isn't an integer, I guess. Path int. Okay, 2166. What we got here, 2166, that's looking good. Let's store that in a variable. So let risk level equal this. And then out here, let's get a total risk level. Total risk level equals 0. And then let's do total risk level plus equals risk level. And then at the end of that for loop, I should be able to console.log total risk level plus total risk level. That should just give me my total risk level is 15. Total risk level is 15. Okay, so we should be ready to try it with this. Now, obviously before we were doing it with a 4x9. Now we're doing it with, I don't even know, let's see, I should read out here. About 100, I'm guessing 100 by 100. Which means that we're probably doing, about 4 comparisons per 100. It's not too bad. I guess it's 100 times 100. So we're doing like 40,000 comparisons. That's not even too bad. Let's see what it does. There you go. Total risk level 462, we think. Let's give it a try. Nice. Good stuff. Thank you very much, everyone. That's halfway done. Let's see, we're 1 star closer to finding the sleigh keys. Then let's log out the row number. Oh no. Next, we need to find the largest basins so we know what areas are most important to avoid. A basin is all locations that eventually flow downwards to a single low point. Therefore, every low point has a basin, although some basins are very small. Locations of height 9 do not count as being in any basin, and all other locations will always be part of exactly one basin. Wow. The size of a basin is the number of locations within the basin, including the low point. The example above has 4 basins. Top left basin, size 3, top right basin, size 9, and the middle basin, size 14. So again, this looks like it would be good if I knew how to do recursion off the bat. Because what we're basically going to do is once we find these low points, instead of just checking everything around it is higher, we kind of need to like traverse into each of those higher points. I think I've almost got the first part done. So I guess instead of pushing the lower points, do we still need to find the lowest points to do this? I guess we've got our list of low points here, so we could use that as our starting point. Logging out, I guess its height is. So maybe I'll write a new function. Oh, there's a big delay on my stream. Let me have a little check. Which is just these numbers plus 1. So let's just get the input. So row in the above example, the risk level col plus 1. Yeah, not receiving enough. I don't think there's anything I'll be able to do now. Though I could probably, I'll look at lowering the resolution next time or something. Okay, well. Okay, 2166. Here, 2166. So that's looking good. Let's store that in a variable. So yeah, I don't know what to do other than, I think it's probably just my internet is down a bit. Risk level. Okay. Well, I'm not expecting to get very far with this. Let's just see if we can write a function that returns maybe a list of new ones to go to. So it's going to be a variation of this. Const get. So from this one, do I want any that is higher than this current one? Yeah. But I guess you'd never need to go to a 9, so that doesn't work. I guess we get anything that's higher that isn't a 9. So get higher neighbors. Get higher neighbors. Higher neighbors that aren't 9. And all I really need is the basin size for each of these starting points. So I don't need to sort of keep track of them. I just need to write a recursive function that sort of spans out like a tree. Equals, so we need like a start row. Yeah, and a start col. And let's set this back to be our easy example too. So it really is going to be very similar to this. I think it's just that instead of pushing the number, I just need to push the, instead of pushing the number, I just need to push the row and cols. So let's just copy this and let's see if I can get that. Good stuff. Thank you very much, everyone. That's halfway done. Let's see, we're 1 star closer to finding. So we can do a practice one. It's not going to do anything. So instead of pushing whether it's higher or lower, I want to go if it's higher than this one but not 9. Next we need to find the largest basin, so we know. So something like if areas are most important to avoid. A basin is all locations that eventually flow downward. And it's to a single low point. Therefore every low point has a basin. It's not 9. Some basins are very small. Let's do locations of height 9. Let's do n for neighbor. Do not const n equals. And all other locations will always be part of this neighbor. If n is larger than our number and n is not equal to 9, then we want to say including the low point, the example is lower neighbor is lower neighbor top left basin dot push, and I want to push an array of and the middle basin size 14. So again, this looks start row. It would be good if I knew and start col do recursion off the bat instead of that push. What we're basically going to do. Does that help me much? Is once we find these low points, so same in here. Checking except these change to these, and this to this. Traverse into each of those higher points. So same below. So I could have written this the first time round, really. Oops. Still need that. Instead of pushing the lower points. Matt, you're saying nice things to me like 5 minutes behind. I'm sorry. We've got our list of low points here, so we could use that as our starting point. So that is +1 now. So maybe I'll write it goes there, it goes there. And same in this one, and then hopefully we're done. We should now get an array instead of whatever we were doing before. So if we use, so that's not what we need to return. We just need to return is lower n. And if I do, what's all those? So now if I call get higher around 0, 0. So for 0, 0, I'm 2. So the only one that's higher, well, that's not a basin anyway, is it? So that's our basin there. But for 2 I should only be getting the position of 3, which is 1, 0. So that's looking good. So if I pick any low point that's not a corner, which I've got actually here, so if I try them, they should all of their neighbors should be, hey, gets higher around 0, 1. So higher around 0, 1 should be this one. And the only one that's higher is 2, right? I know they're all higher. But it shouldn't be getting 9s. Did I add those 9s? If that number is not equal to 9, why is that showing up? Console.log n. Did I miss a 9? Get higher around 1, 0. It's logging a 9. So 1, 0 is this. No, 1, 0 is second row here. Second row, 0th index should be 3. So the only one higher than that are these. It should be giving me nothing. But it's still giving me the 9s, and it's even listing out the 9. So I think, do I need to do just that because it's not a 9? I don't feel like that should be it. And it's not equal to a 9, so I guess we get anything that's higher that isn't a 9. Get. Let's call this function every time as well, because we know that should be console.log gets higher around 1s. Well, it shouldn't be 1, 0. I should be looking at 0, 1. And that should output just the position to its left. Should be 0, 0. It does. Have I just got it flipped around in my head? 0, 1. Okay, so it was just that string. It's because they're 9s as strings instead of 9s as numbers, but that's fine. So that should be our input for the next one. So we should be able to say console.log that, which should give us 0, 0. So we put 0, 0 in. Get 1, 0. And then that should be our last one. We should get nothing. Cool. Why is it logging out of 3? Because I told it to there. So we don't need this whole function anymore, so let's get rid of that. Oh no, we do. Let's keep that actually, because that gives us our starting points. And then this should be returning at this point the size of that basin, which is 3. So what we need to do is modify, what's this getting higher? So we need to sort of crawl through that tree. So the base case would be that we call it once, it gets nothing, and hence we must have a, what's it called, basin size? Basin size, yeah. Basin size of 3. So let's do base case. So we're going to call some function. It's going to return nothing. Is it going to return nothing? Is it going to find nothing as the options it has? If nothing, then it's going to return 1. I guess every time we run this, it'll return 1, but they'll just sort of terminate as they trickle through. So, do we have a space where, I guess we could start on this cell, and that could be our base case because it should return nothing. So get higher around 1, 0. So that's going to be a base case, though it's not going to give us everything we need yet. Really, we want like a a sort of recursive function, so const, let's say crawl, I don't know, crawl vents. That's going to take a row, a column, and is there going to be something else? Let's just say if get higher around row col equals empty array, then return 1. It wouldn't actually be 1, it would be whatever the total is so far plus 1. So we can to do that, and then else nothing yet, that'll be our recursive case. So now we should be able to crawl vents. So now we can do crawl vents. Let's write in here console.log crawling, and let's do row plus col plus col. So now we'll get a little message as we crawl as well. So we're crawling that, and I don't know, let's say terminate crawl in here. So we'll only go into this if we reach an end of one of those leaves. Oh, if get high around row col is equal to, why isn't it running terminate crawl? Ow. And how is it even returning if there's nothing? I guess it doesn't have to return something to finish. So this isn't correct. What is that crawl? Get higher around 1, 0 is nothing. Matt, you're saying nice things to me like 5 minutes. Let's try. Oh. Is an empty array not equal to an empty array? Oh, well, that's JavaScript for you. Let's do, I think I can use length. Yeah, so let's do that. Dot length equals 0. Okay. So my next case, so that's fine, base case is fine. Next, let's create something where there's n plus 1, or not n plus 1, let's say there's one iteration, so that recursion will be, we call crawl vents, somewhere that's going to go to crawl vents 1, 0, and we already know what that is up here. So if we call it on 0, 0, that will work. So let's do 0, 0, and so that's supposed to do crawl vent 0, 0. It won't do anything other than call the first one, right? So it won't terminate because it's in the else. So more crawling. So it needs to crawl everything it gets back from this. So we need to do, so next root equals get higher. Let's do const next root equals get higher. And then we can just use next root dot that. So this branch terminates. Otherwise, if it doesn't terminate, then we need to call this function again, crawl vents, next root. For now, I'm just assuming there's only one in next root. Ooh, cannot read undefined. Is that because my next root is undefined? Get higher around. Okay, you can see there. So it's crawling row 0, 0. first, which I told it to, then it's calling row 10, which is not correct. So that needs to be, I need to split this probably. Let's try that. Get higher around 0. Oh, is that because of my errors? Because of my error?